builders, and welcome to the Girls Who Build, where we get real on the messy middle of building a business and learn from the world's most popular brands who are currently doing all of the things that you want to do. So grab your hard hat, step onto the site, and let's get building. Welcome to the Girls Who Build. So here's what I'm thinking about the structure of most of these episodes. I do plan on being a mix between solo and also having interview style podcasts in the future. But I do want there to be a very common and simple outline that we can kind of follow that's going to be helpful for you guys to know what to expect, but also helpful for me in planning the episodes. And I love staying on theme with this whole building concept. So this is what I'm thinking. We would start each episode with our highs and lows of the week. You get to see an inside look into what I'm doing in my own business. I get to kind of share some of my own personal struggles with you, and we can talk about it in the comments. We can learn from each other and hopefully help each other out in the community. And then next is going to be the biggest section. This is going to be where we dive in deep on the brand that I decided to talk about this week. We'll finish it all up with our field notes. And these are going to be the notes that you can take away, but the goal is that every episode gives you some kind of value so that you walk away feeling like you can apply this and it's something that can actually help you in your business and in your day-to-day. A lot of the podcasts out there always talk about the people once they've already made it to the level they're at, and they're kind of sharing, brief stories about what they're going through, but you can't really apply a lot of those, or in a lot of instances, they might have huge budgets that they're working with, or they're using celebrity names to really boost the products that they're selling. So how can we apply that to our own businesses? And this is especially true if you're a service-based business, and a lot of examples out there are from products, but there are tons of things that you can do and like inspiration that you can pull from that. I think this week was really transformative, more so than other weeks. I think your entire first 6 months of a business is really constant fine-tuning. My biggest question was like, is it possible to show up on every platform, unique to every platform and native to the platform, but also be consistent and drive conversion and do it all in the best way possible without a team of 100 people? And that was the biggest question I had, because it's a problem I need to solve for myself. I know that there are a lot of businesses that feel this way. They feel like they need to be everywhere. And because of that, they're copy and pasting their content all over the place and nothing is resonating. And then they kind of feel stuck, like they're spinning their wheels. I learned that it's really more about the systems behind the scenes. And so this week, I kind of revamped a lot of my positioning into a core framework that I want to offer as my service. And the service really is about making sure that any business who wants to be visible online has a ongoing, consistent, and cohesive ecosystem across all the platforms. It allows me to step into the sales role with more confidence because I know I can speak to that. I know that I can help someone create a better system. I can help them create the content and produce the content and make sure that there's a constant flow of content showing up with your brand all over the place and helping you out. I'm calling it the always on content engine. I came up with a whole name. I came up with the sales pitch. I came up with the framework and how I would actually apply this systematically for a brand. And I want to start testing it out because I think a lot of businesses want to show up everywhere, but they don't know how to do it in the best way possible that's also going to drive, conversion and leads into their business. And then my roadblock for the week, and I'm only bringing this up because I think other people might struggle with this, our mindset is everything. And one of my clients, I am so excited for the journey that she's going on right now. She is in the very, very beginning stages of trying to find a space here in Austin to create a wellness center. That's a commitment to have a physical space, right? And she's like, I think fear is a learned behavior. That's real. And that's such a good way to look at it. There's a difference in the way that people think about themselves and the way that they react to certain situations. If they get ghosted or they get no's constantly, they don't think something's wrong with them. right? They don't internalize that fear and that rejection as something that they did wrong. It's all about, well, that person is just not a good fit, or that person just doesn't see it yet. They don't get it. Or even if someone just never responded to you, oh, that person just never got my email. They never got my message. If they understood and if they know who I am and they know what I offer, it's a no brainer. They would say yes. And that mindset right there is what is the difference between someone who's successful and someone who isn't. And yeah, so I hope that helps anybody else who's feeling like that. Let me know if that's something that you're going through. So let's get on the ground. Let's lay it all out there and talk about why we're really here. Rare beauty. When I was thinking of the first episode that I was going to use to kick off this podcast, I really wanted to find a brand that I personally enjoy using, but also is doing something very unique and special within the industry that they're in. Disclaimer, this has nothing to do with Selena Gomez as a human, as an artist, as a celebrity, or even as a founder. I really wanted to talk about Rare Beauty from the lens of the brand itself. It's not because Selena Gomez is the founder. In fact, I think that the brand is so strong that it could kind of stand without Selena Gomez in a lot of ways. Although obviously her story benefits the brand, but I think not a lot of celebrity owned brands can say that they can stand alone with a true story of their brand and a mission and a purpose more than Rare Beauty. So I really want to talk about why and how they do that. This is never going to turn into like a Selena versus Hailey conversation. This is really more from the lens of the CMO who works at the company, Katie Welch, and how she thinks about marketing in general, how she thinks of the brand as a whole, and how they were able to develop the message, the story behind the brand. And especially from the lens of a small brand, if you're at home and you may not be even thinking of starting a makeup brand or anything like that. But I think that the lessons that we can pull from this brand, it could be tied to any product or service that you sell, no matter how big, no matter how small. And I think it's an important thing to talk about. So to kick things off, let me give you some context. I was a girl that wore makeup and did my hair literally every single day since like junior high. I was the girl who couldn't even go to the grocery store without putting on some makeup. And then COVID happened and I started working remote and I hadn't worn makeup in like 4 years. And there was a huge shift that happened between like pre-COVID time and post-COVID when it comes to makeup, beauty, style, everything. And I officially felt completely old. I mean, I'm a millennial. And if you've ever been into Sephora, which chances are you probably have, Sephora is overwhelming to say the least. There are thousands of products. There's thousands of blushes and lipsticks. And so it was a little much, okay? And subconsciously, I didn't even know it, but this was my first product that I purchased after not wearing makeup in like 4 years. And for those of you that are not watching on video, it's Rare Beauty. I never really used a liquid blush before. And everything before that, if you're a millennial, you probably know everything was matte, everything was contour and bronzer and dramatic, smoky eyes. And now it's a lot of blush, it's a lot of no makeup looks, it's a lot of liquid stuff to get that glowy skin. And I've never used liquid. So you may be asking, Christina, why would you even buy liquid blush if you've never used it before? It had to do with their marketing. Yep, it had to do with their branding. And I think that that's why I want to talk about it the most. To be honest, I mean, since then, I've already purchased all kinds of little toys from them. I got a lip liner, I've got 2 highlighters, a liquid one and a powder, and then I got a lip gloss. Every single one of their products has like a cute little positive, uplifting word attached to the name of the color. And I think that that's really unique because it stands true to who they are as a brand and what their mission is. So like this highlighter is called Enlighten. The blush is Encourage. The highlighter is Enchant. Right? The lip gloss is Hope. And so you'll see that these words have positive impact and it all ties back to the meaning of the brand. That entire story, long-winded as it is, the reason I brought it up is because I am a girl who went out of her way to go and buy a product that she's never tried before, all because of the message, all because of the way it looked on social media, and it was top of mind for me. When I was doing some research for this episode, I found out that the Soft Pinch Liquid Blush, which is the one I bought, is actually a viral TikTok bestseller. And it actually accounts for over 26% of the Sephora blushes in the entire store. That is insane. That one product And I would consider this like their flagship. I really do credit this to launching the blush craze that we have now. This was really pigmented, and the way that they would demonstrate it in tutorials on TikTok were able to go viral because it was so easy to use. You could use your fingers for it. It was so effortless to use, and they could make these short clips, and it went viral on TikTok. Why is it that this was my first product? Why is it that this went viral? And what is it that they do differently? Why do people gravitate towards Rare Beauty when they are not the first celebrity makeup brand? There's so many brands that are created and then they, put a celebrity space on it just to have a quick cash grab. They've been doing that for years, right? There's alcohol brands, there's perfume brands, and then there's something about Rare Beauty that I can't find too many actual companies that I can say this about, especially in the beauty and the like fashion and the makeup industries. Fenty is another one that was really good at that. And I think, I may make a video on Fenty and how they were able to become so successful and stand alone without Rihanna. And I think that there's a beautiful lesson to be taken from that to apply to our own brands. So I'm here to tell you, believe it or not, no matter if you sell a product or a service, or you're a solopreneur or you work for a big company, chances are you will come across someone like me who will go out of their way to buy your product or service simply because they resonate with the meaning behind it. There are those people. And especially now with, the amount of saturation of all these products and marketing and all of this noise online, it's going to be bigger than ever. I want to deep dive some of the interviews that the CMO Katie Welch has had recently. And I think she has a lot of really, really important nuggets that I want to talk about. She actually just announced that she's leaving Rare Beauty for Chanel, but that's not happening until January. And she's been at Rare Beauty from the very beginning. Like, she was having conversations with Selena back in like 2019 when they were deciding, like, Selena had the idea of starting a company. She originally had the idea of the Rare Impact Fund, right? That was tied to her album named Rare. She has a song named Rare. Like, it's no secret or surprise that this is the direction that she was going to go. When Selena Gomez decided to launch this, it was 2020. And obviously, we know what happened in 2020. Like I said, she was not the first makeup brand. I mean, you've got in 2015, you had Kylie launching her lip kits, and those went mega viral. Her real emphasis on the lip kits was to have a very limited quantity. It was really just influencer driven, and she really used social media for that. The other one that started was Fenty in 2017. And Fenty was the first one that actually stood alone without Rihanna. Like, there was a story behind it of inclusivity because she found a direct need because there weren't that many foundations in 100 different shades of color. And she realized that that's not right. Like, people deserve to find the shade that matches them, because there are people out there that have to buy two different shades and mix them together to find their shade. And so she was able to revolutionize makeup in that way. And she really highlighted inclusivity as her main message. In 2019, Lady Gaga, she created House Labs. To be honest, the only thing I really know about House Labs, I think from at the beginning, they were really known for having more dramatic, bold colors and more like artistry. Like, I always picture it kind of like for the wannabe makeup artist who wants to have, elaborate, bold colors. It may not be true, but that's what I know about the brand without doing too much research. And then in 2020, right during the time when disaster struck the world, she decided she was going to launch this brand. Rare Beauty launched in 2020 from someone's kitchen, from her bedroom, where she had to film all of her videos because there was no way that they could do photo shoots. They were supposed to launch in Sephora with over 150 SKUs. And so when you think of marketing, you may think, oh, the people making the content on TikTok and the Instagram. But in reality, like, if you have a product, you have to think about every little piece of that product page that goes on the Sephora website. Sephora's not creating that. So if you think about when you click on a product, everything from the product description, the features and benefits, the tutorials, the photos, the close-up shots of the products, adding in all the names of the products, adding an inventory, all of that kind of stuff falls under the marketing umbrella. So here you have Katie Welch trying from a kitchen table to create two brands, the Rare Impact Fund and Rare Beauty. So she had to figure out how they were going to get all of the marketing content and all of the things needed to launch into Sephora for this brand, but also all the foundational stuff that typically comes when you're starting a brand. I'm talking about like the brand mission, the vision, the values, what you stand for, the purpose, and how you want to position yourself within the market. Every company should be doing that. I would consider that extremely foundational, like number one. I know a lot of clients, they don't even have those foundations. So then it makes your marketing, like the content creation, the website development, a lot harder. Like it's nicer to have all of that stuff laid out and very clear. So she's having to balance all of this at the same time. Okay. And she said that they were only really able to get one professional photo shoot. And so when you think of most makeup and beauty in general as an industry is all about perceived perfection. Most of the time, they get professional makeup artists to do the makeup, they get models, and they have a photo shoot, and everything is completely staged. But guess what? When the typical person goes into Sephora, who just watches maybe some makeup, influencers on TikTok or YouTube, and they're learning as they go, and they don't really have the background knowledge of a makeup artist, it can be kind of annoying, right? Like you're going in to buy a product, and why does it never look the same on me as it does on that girl? Well, it's because they have, experts who've been doing it, like their entire job and career is makeup. Okay. And Selena Gomez didn't do that. Probably, I don't know if it was on purpose or because of COVID, right? It could have been a blend of both, but it really made her brand seem extremely authentic and real and honest. And I see people who have a podcast that's super professional and beautiful. They probably rent out a studio. They have a hair and makeup person behind the scenes, they have a camera crew behind the scenes. And so it's easy for us to compare ourselves to that. Why would that be any different for us than it would be for someone like Selena Gomez, who has the world looking at every single thing she does? Right? If the photos on their website, on Sephora's website, are crappy, people aren't going to want to buy. People are going to judge her because she already gets a lot of hate online, right? And so I imagine that it must be even worse for someone of her level, but yet they really leaned into that. And actually, Selena was on a interview, I think it was with Fortune, and she said that in 2025 and 2026, they are going to double down on not using models. She got a lot of hate for that. But in reality, what I think it means is that, again, that is the standard in the makeup industry, to have models, right? In the beauty, in the fashion industry, it's to have models who look a certain way. And her whole thing is not about that. Like her thing is diversity, making sure that there's all kinds of shapes, sizes, ages, from all walks of life using her products for you as a normal person to be able to use your fingers and just dab the product in, right? So this was a whole story that, yeah, sure, it took years. I mean, it took her being in the media for her entire life for these stories to develop over time. And that may not be as natural for someone who is just starting a brand and like the world doesn't know you yet. And the beauty of that is the world doesn't know you yet, so you can craft that message. But it is important for you to repeat that message over and over and over again. A lipstick is a lipstick, a blush is a blush. But the Rare Impact Fund really spoke to the core reason for all of this is for her to make a difference, for her to feel like, she is doing something for the greater good. A lot of companies will put that they donate a percentage of their profits to a charitable place or they give donations. There's people who say that all the time on their website. The difference is with Rare Beauty is that they actually created a council of experts. They have events, they have an annual summit. At the very beginning, especially during COVID, their focus groups to learn about how to develop the products was to get people, normal people, on Zoom and talk about their experiences with makeup and mental health and all of these. And you may think, well, these two things have nothing to do with one another. And she, Katie Welch was kind of saying that. She's like, well, as a makeup brand, like, what can we actually do for the mental health crisis? It's not like you can stop mental health altogether and say, oh, I successfully removed mental health as a concern for everyone. That's not really possible. But she read something where it said that loneliness is one of the beginning indicators of someone who might have mental health concerns. She was able to take that little nugget of information and be like, okay, well, that means we can actually do something about that. We can create events. We can have people meet in person, especially after COVID with everybody working remote and not being around each other. The community aspect was extremely important. She even said, like, if we were able to get two people to become friends from one of our events, we have done our job. And that is something that is so simple to say. And it's a message that not only can be shared across their marketing, but also internally with their team, with their company, company and allow people to feel like they're a part of something bigger. So, as I said before, all of the products have like these unique names, right? And that is part of their positioning too, that I really want people to take and see how you can apply that to your own brand. I guess when they were first starting out, they were asking Selena, like, what does your beauty routine look like? Most people would probably say, oh, I wash my face first, or maybe they drink some collagen or do something like that, right? But she said that she does positive affirmations and she writes things down like on her mirror at home to kind of remind her every day before she steps out into the world. This is something positive that you're putting into your body, into your mind. They really use that across their marketing. At events, they have these like hashtag rare reminders, these little post-its, and people could write down little reminders. What I'm trying to get at is this message is carried throughout everything that they do. You can see the little special touches. And one thing I see a big struggle with small businesses is that they kind of forget about those little pieces of the puzzle, right? Everyone says like we have exceptional customer service, like we really care about our customers and we really care about our clients. But it's another thing to pinpoint an actual thing that both of you can connect on as people, right? And then the company is second. Now that we talked about where they stand and how they carry on their message, I really want to touch on their content strategy, which I think is kind of cool. They prioritize owned media and earned media mainly. Owned media is the media that you own, the marketing content that you are creating, and you're basically pushing out that message out to the world. That's your own social channels, your website, even just events that you do. Like those are owned media. The earned media is when people like basically you've earned the right for people to talk about you in positive ways, right? Like probably you'd say that this video, this podcast episode is part of earned media for them because I'm talking about them and how great they are as a company. That happened organically without them paying for any of that. So influencers who talk about it, people using it in everyday life, people giving it to their friends, people talking about it, that kind of thing. And paid media is obviously going to be like ads. They do all of their social marketing in-house because they're able to control that and also quickly get the messaging out to the public, which I think is fine. I think a lot of brands, especially smaller businesses, probably can't justify that. Or the biggest issue I see with small brands is that they'll hire one person and expect that person to do all of it, which it's not possible. It's really hard for one person to, monitor and create and manage an entire like even just three is a lot for one person to handle because each one of them has to be spoken to differently and handled very differently. They have a community department and they have a creator department, which just speaks to the fact that they put a lot of time and attention and effort into those two groups. I'm not telling you to go out and create a community department within your brand, but like, how can you make this a bigger priority? Because everyone talks about community. I mean, it's a word that's been said so many times, but what does that actually mean? And how do you use it within your own brand and within your own local groups? The hard thing about content, and obviously this is their main focus, the hardest thing about it is that you do have to move at the speed of culture. And I think a lot of people don't think about that. The trends that happen in beauty happen so fast. So your business may not be like that, right? Your business may not be completely dependent on virality and trends that are happening. The beauty industry is very saturated. There's a lot of products that you can buy and choose from. But let's be honest, that's with everything. Chances are you're in an industry that probably has already hundreds or thousands of other competitors and competition. If you don't really stop and see, how do I differentiate myself from that? A lipstick is a lipstick, a blush is a blush. A real estate agent is a real estate agent. A consultant is a consultant. An agency is an agency. And so you have to figure out how to set yourself apart. And that's only going to happen through storytelling. I think the brand also has a story that they associate. That authenticity, that mental health aspect is something that turns that lipstick from being just a lipstick. It turns it into a transformation. It turns it into impact. It turns it into community, right? It turns it into connection. That's something that I think is really beautiful. And it's probably my favorite part of marketing and why I enjoy this space so much. It is hard to do, right? But when you see it, you just know. And that's the beauty of it. So when it comes to their actual content strategy and the platforms that they choose to be on. They've obviously got Instagram and they have TikTok. I think those are their biggest ones. They've recently started a Substack, and I think that that's extremely unique. Substack is a place where it kind of acts like a newsletter for your brand. It acts like a long form place where you can put articles, you can put your podcast and your YouTube videos, and you can still discover people, which is nice, right? Because instead of just sending out newsletter to your email list, this is a way to discover more people. There are not a lot of beauty brands on Substack. The only other makeup brand is Say, and I'm pretty sure they started it recently too. So there are not a lot. And so why would a company like Rare Beauty decide to go that direction? Because before they can create something, they're not a small brand. They can't just decide, okay, tomorrow let's create one. They probably had to do a lot of data research. They had to have a strategy in place, and they had to plan the whole thing out before they actually launched something on Substack. That just speaks to where things are headed. They use their Substack to be like the insidery, unauthorized telling of Rare Beauty. You're only going to see like behind the scenes stuff. They have things on there like what it takes to launch a viral collab, because they just released the Bays collab last month. And they also have like the story behind the soft pinch liquid blush, because that's their viral bestseller. They also have stuff related to mental health though, like I didn't think I'd make it to 18. And these are stories from people within their community. That's such a beautiful way of doing it, because it shows, again, another way to tell their story on where they stand with their mission and their values and the reason why they exist. The important thing to realize here is that you have to pay attention to attention. This is something that Katie Welch has said several times, so much so that it's ingrained in my brain now, and I love the message of it. We as consumers should be paying attention to attention before we think about it from a business lens. You're a consumer before you are a business owner and before you're a content creator. Back in 2019, she was paying attention to where attention was, and she noticed that it was on TikTok at the time. And she was like, oh my gosh, everyone is spending so much time on TikTok. I know I was. During COVID, I think I was on it for like 10 hours a day. I'm not even lying. And I mean, that really hasn't changed recently either. I really enjoy the platform. But when I talk to small businesses, they're like, well, I don't want to do dancing, right? And I don't want to do silly dance moves. And it's so ironic that, yes, TikTok was known as Musical.ly. It was known as the platform for dancing back in 2020. But as a good marketer, you have to think why. Why are people spending all of their time doing this, right? You can be impressed with the creativity of these dances, because everyone was doing the same dance, the same song, yet everyone had a different spin on the same thing. So there was a level of creativity involved in that. And from a marketing lens, you could think, okay, there's something here, right? There's a reason why people are spending their time here. But the other thing is community. Unless you're on TikTok, you don't really get it. But the way that comments are so different on TikTok than they are on Instagram, and it's so hard to explain. But when you go to a video, chances are the first thing you're doing is going to the comments and reading them, because they are so funny. Sometimes the comments themselves are funnier than the actual video that you're watching. For some reason, that same energy and vibe has not carried over to Instagram. So if you don't like use the platform, you're not going to know this information. These are little tiny things that really get you into the mindset of people. And you may say, well, I don't sell to teenagers. Well, guess what? It's not just teenagers on the app. Yeah, that's what you think of, but in reality, there's a huge variety. But you don't know that until you do it. A good marketer would be asking, how do I apply this? Like, how can I take this information that I'm learning, and how can I do it in a way that is true to who we are as a company and gets our message out to these people, right? Once you understand that, you'll be able to really navigate marketing online, because a lot of times I see people who just repurpose their content from one place to another and they don't change it at all. Half the time, what works there is not going to work here at all. We have to be realistic. Like pre-planned content that's super staged, super edited on Instagram might work. On TikTok, definitely not. And so you won't know that until you're on it. A lot of people say that they hate social media, they wouldn't see themselves doing it. And that's fine for you, but sometimes you need to separate who you are from your business. And I see that that is a huge struggle for a lot of people, especially not just solopreneurs, but even people who have companies where they don't want to be the face of it. And I get it, it's a lot of work. It's a mindset shift, right? To be able to show up as a creator, to put yourself out there, to be ridiculed or whatever. I actually saw that this was like months ago, but PayPal put up a job posting on LinkedIn looking for a head of CEO content, which is very much like personal brand building. That's a very interesting job posting that we don't see very often, but you can see where they're prioritizing their attention is creating content for the actual face of the company, whoever that may be, right? And if it's your business that you're trying to build, well, you're going to be the face of it. Now, why does mental health work as a brand purpose for them? And how are you going to find your brand purpose very clearly? The storytelling that Selena has as a founder, like I said, has helped. You know, she was bullied in the public eye. She has a ton of health issues, her kidney transplant, her lupus, her arthritis. You know, she has a documentary, My Mind and Me, where it's all about mental health and her struggles of being bipolar. Like, she has an entire story that's really captivating to a lot of people, and it speaks volumes to who she is as a person. And so that has helped connect the dots to the brand. But aside from all of her struggles, take her out of the equation, and I truly believe this company could still stand without her. I guess Katie Welch went and asked Selena, why do you want to create Rare Beauty? And she said, I want to create a space where people feel welcome. Katie said, well, that's a interesting word to use because the beauty industry is not known for being welcoming. Yeah, they're known for empowerment, probably inclusivity, probably bold, creative self expression, but to be welcome, not really. Everything that they do is elaborate and beautiful, and it's not authentic or real to the everyday human, right? It's all about aspiration. It's all about, hey, something is wrong with you. Let's fix that with makeup. Right? Let's change the way your skin texture is because, you know, we need to hide your skin texture with primer and all these things, right? Instead of embracing the imperfections. The product is just going to be the product, and you're going to be like commoditized and compared to everyone in your industry unless you assign a specific meaning behind it. It's not fluff, it's not lying, it's not fake if it stands true to why you started, because everyone has a story on why they started their business. It might be simply because you hated 9 to 5 and you wanted to escape. It could be like in my case, I really want to work with women-owned businesses and women that are making a difference in the world and purpose-driven companies, right? And so whatever that means to you and your business on why you started, lean into that. Journal about it, talk to your friends about it, and really figure out what that looks like. Because when you think about that and you become more than just the product or the service that you sell, you're not only going to break through the noise of everyone who is fatigued on the internet of trying to hear the same message 100 times, but you're also going to ride the wave and stand stronger than a lot of people during things like recessions. People are still going to be loyal to you because there's a deeper meaning involved. And I could talk about this all day. I mean, Ben and Jerry's, I mean, now I think the guy quit or he had to leave the company due to politics, but ice cream is ice cream. You could have better ice cream than someone else. You can have better flavors, sure. But especially when it's a more expensive product, like Ben and Jerry's can be very expensive for the size that you get. They had a message, a meaning, a value tied to Ben and Jerry's. It wasn't just about ice cream anymore. It was about changing the planet. And so you'll be able to ride the wave of recessions more. You'll also be able to charge more because people are more willing to pay for it because they see the value in what you have to offer. I really think that that's important to highlight the reasoning behind why I made this podcast episode in the first place. I think a lot of the stuff I'm saying right now is foundational, and a lot of people don't emphasize this enough. There are 4 things that I want you to do as your homework, as the CEO homework. The first is I want you to audit the names of your products, the names of your services, the call to action buttons on your website, the language that you use across your product pages. Do those words that you use reinforce the emotional promise that you have for your audience? Do you even have an emotional promise? The easiest way to say this is like a vibe. Like, I think it's so cute that each one of their products is like encourage and hope and illuminate and enlighten and wise and beauty and strength. Like, those are so cute to have on your packaging. Maybe cute is not the right word for you. So, what does that look like to you? Because language shapes the emotions that you want people to have. You are driving them to the direction that you want them to go with the words that you're using. Number two, would you rather have a mediocre product and a great brand, or a mediocre brand and a great product? Leave a comment below and let me know what you think about this for real, because I think, yes, you need both. Ideally, you're going to have a great brand and a great product, because if you have great branding, but you have a crappy product, they're not going to trust you and they're not going to buy from you because it's crap. But you clearly haven't met Walmart or Shein, right? Like, these are brands that have made a name for themselves. Like Shein, come on. Shein is known for being cheap, and that's a good and bad thing, right? They're cheap, meaning they have really cute and trendy products and outfits and things like that, but the material's cheap. It's not going to last very long, but people buy it because it's cheap. And so I would say that that is the best example of, now, I don't know if it's a great brand, but people know it for being trendy products that they can buy for cheaper. A lot of small businesses would probably argue against me and say that the product is better than the brand. That speaks to their attention and where they put all their energy, because every business owner is going to say that we have the best product, our customer service is the best, we really care about our clients, and the service that you get with us is exceptional, and blah, blah, blah. That may be all great and good, but if you sound like everyone else because everyone is saying the same thing and there's no special meaning behind it, are you really doing something different? Are you doing something great? I think there are two things to look at here, and there's a blend of short-term and long-term marketing that really needs to be a focus. And I think for a lot of smaller companies, maybe it's because you're in the weeds day to day and you don't have time to step out and see it for what it is. But there's short-term marketing, which is driven by sales. And this is also big companies, because I've worked at companies where all they care about is looking at the quarter or the month, like what are the sales this month and what are the projected sales for the quarter. That's needed. That's important, sure. But if you don't have the long term, which is the brand building, it's going to be harder and harder 12 months from now, because that quarter is going to creep up too. And the foundation that you lay today is what helps you 12 months from now. That's what long form content is about. If you think long term, a lot of businesses don't think about that. They're like, well, I don't want to spend the time. Or if they do, they think it's a logo. They think it's like refreshing their website or their logo to get that done. And I'm like, that has nothing to do with it. Like, you could leave your website the same, you could leave your logo the same forever, and it will have almost zero impact on you as a small company. What really matters is that if someone were like a customer or a client, if you were to ask them, hey, what do you know about us? Like, what's our story? Why do we exist? They should be able to spit something out so simple and easy to understand that a 10-year-old would get it, right? In a conversational way. When I work with businesses, even like right now, for example, I'm working with a solopreneur life coach we're building her website, and we had to do a lot of this foundational stuff because she's just now launching her company. We started first and foremost with mission, value, purpose, and we really tried to hone in on what that looks like. I urge you to think about it from the lens of someone who is not in your industry or someone who is a child, and you're trying to be conversational about it and casually mention why you exist as a company. Because if you can't explain that, or if someone can't repeat that back to you in a few words, all you've got is gibberish. All you've got is corporate marketing slapped on your website that really has no impact and makes you sound like everyone else. And this is especially true in B2B. You need to have something that is so easy to remember, like make people feel welcome. That in and of itself says a lot. Like, everybody gets it. Everybody kind of understands what that means. You have to share that message and make sure that that is embedded into your culture as a company. And that doesn't mean short form and long form. I just want to be very clear. It's not about the type of content that you're choosing, whether it's a reel or a TikTok versus a podcast or a YouTube. It really has to do with the focus of what you're putting your attention in. Brand building is all about telling the story and really making sure that that story is shared across every single thing that you touch. Whereas sales is really going to be, for example, if we're talking about a blush, right? A blush, you can talk about how it lasts a long time. It's 24-hour coverage, it's high pigment. You can show different ways to apply it. You can show products that you can buy with it and bundle it together. That's the short-term sales driven type of messaging. Whereas if you were to think about that blush long term, that blush can represent a girl who is playing around with makeup for the first time. Or it could be someone who struggles silently with their mental health while having to put on a face to go out into the world. Being able to tell that story in a comfortable way is beautiful. You don't know it until you see it. When you think of Nike and Apple, you have a specific image in your brain of that company, right? That is their long term marketing at play. It's not their short term. Yeah, sure, you may think of Jordans, but in the grand scheme of it, you're not thinking about the shoe. You're thinking about the feeling that you get from the brand. You're thinking about the long-standing messaging that they've given us for decades and decades. Number 3, culture is the creative brief. I find this really interesting because in a world where everyone is so scared of being canceled, guess what? Marketing is everywhere. Everything is relevant to marketing. The front page of the news, what's being talked about on Fox News and CNN, and what's on Forbes and Fortune, AI, whatever's happening in pop culture, Taylor Swift getting engaged. You may think none of that has to do with marketing at all. But if we go back to what I said earlier about paying attention to where attention is, because that's what's going to drive and influence behaviors, psychology, consumer behavior, whether or not we're deciding on buying something now or we're about to hit a recession. People talk about being tone deaf a lot, and that's how people get into cancel culture with brands where it's like, guys, you don't realize what's going on. Like a lot of people are losing their jobs and they don't have money to eat, yet you want to sell a $200 thing. In order to do good marketing, you have to reach people in different areas. It's a conversation between two people. Otherwise, you're just throwing things out there. You're constantly just like spitting out your information about the brand. And I think that that's something that people are very fearful of. If you pay attention to how you make decisions, how you use media, how you think about things, you are a consumer first and a business owner second. And so if you think about how people are, like, what are they talking about on the internet? What's in the news right now? How can I turn that into something? Even just being aware of it is important, right? I think that that's something that Rare Beauty was able to tap into a lot. They knew culturally where the beauty industry was headed, right? Like I said, pre-COVID was a very different look for millennials, especially than post-COVID. Post-COVID was all glowy skin, glass skin. There was a lot of specific trends in the beauty industry. And if you don't know and you're not tapped into that, it's hard to make content for that. It's hard to push that. It's hard to even do product development for that, honestly. The way that social media is headed, I know we will get to a place in the next few years where followers won't matter at all. What's going to matter is the individual videos and the views that you're getting on those specific videos. Meaning that now you have an opportunity no longer to niche down into some specific like subset of the internet and focus every single video on that. Now you have the freedom to create videos and try to figure out how to tie in your brand to whatever group or subset you're trying to tap into. Taylor Swift getting engaged, that's a big audience right there. How can you insert your name into the conversation in some way? People have been doing this for years. You'll see brands like Delta and Southwest who go into the comment section of viral videos that have millions of views and just like leave funny comments. You know, this is how they do with like Burger King and Wendy's and all of them. They always try to tap in and they just want to be visible there, right? Because it's a little bit of real estate that they're adding there and it's keeping someone top of mind. Oh, they see that Wendy's reply to a comment on this random video that has nothing to do with food or anything. And that's just getting them into the conversation. I don't think that that's solely a big corporation thing. I think that that's something we can all do. It just takes a little time and effort, of course. But pay attention to that attention, and culture is the creative brief that you should be using to drive a lot of your decisions within your marketing. And the final thing that I want to talk about is to stop worshiping perfection. So, as you can see from the very beginning of this podcast, I was talking about how authentic the brand is, right? They started during COVID at a time where they were not able to create photo shoots or anything because, the world stopped. And Selena, had to do a lot of these tutorials in the comfort of her own bedroom. There was even a video of Katie Welch saying that Selena didn't even have those little sticky Octo Buddies that you put on your phone and you can stick to the mirror. She didn't even have that in 2020. And so she had to tape her phone to her mirror in order to get the angle that she needed for these videos. Now, that is the most real that I could get. Like, that is so real and that's so authentic to who she is, but so normal. It's just so normal. And so that's just one little example of how they didn't overthink it. They just shot with their phone and it actually ended up being in their benefit to do so. If you're sitting there and you're worried because you need to have the perfect logo, you need to update your website, you need to have a photo shoot, really just do it messy because the right people will come to you. Perfection creates admiration, but imperfection creates belonging and connection. I have always admired bigger brands and bigger founders and creators, like even a Mr. Beast. I'm like, wow, I can't believe he got there. What I try to do is go back to his first video and compare. And those videos never look good. They look so real. They look like webcams. It makes you feel like, okay, they were once in my shoes. They were where I'm at. And it just makes you feel more grounded instead of looking at and romanticizing where they're at with their expensive cameras and their team of people to do all the editing and the filming for them, right? And so if you think about that and you embrace the imperfectness, that's how literally her entire brand stands out in the beauty industry, is by being anti-perfect, right? And not saying that has to be your message, but maybe it can be. And maybe it makes it easier for you to create content and show up and have the life that you want and build the business that you want. So as we can see, Rare Beauty follows a very specific formula that I think that we can all apply. They're authentic, they're real and honest in everything that they do. They share their story repeatedly over and over again. And they do something that's bigger than themselves, right? They donate, they have the Rare Impact Fund, and they do something to really make a difference in the world. That's something that we can all kind of take to heart and do no matter what stage of business that you're in. And the lesson here isn't to try to copy Selena or copy Rare Beauty, not at all. I think it's to find the intersection between your product, your story, and your audience's attention, and find what that looks like, and then obsess over that until it works. And at the end of the day, building a brand that matters isn't about chasing virality. It's about connection and finding your people that will resonate with your message. You don't need Selena Gomez. You don't need millions of dollars. You don't need celebrity status to get that done. You really just need purpose and to be able to clearly define that in a few words to like a small child who's going to understand. And then that's how you're going to be able to really make a difference and stand out and grow your empire. So thank you so much for sticking around. If this episode gave you a new, fresh perspective, I'd love to hear from you. Please subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts or on YouTube. I will be putting up all the videos to the episodes as well. And subscribe on TreyaDigital.com to get the newsletter. That's going to give you alerts every time a new episode comes out. If you have any questions or want to see other specific brands or founders that we talk about, please let me know in the comments, and I cannot wait for you to see the next episode. Thanks so much. See you soon.